If you're a tech leader, you know the feeling. It's this constant pull in two different directions. On one side, you've got the C-suite demanding innovation, speed, and the next big thing. And on the other, you've got finance looking at every single line item in your budget. In this explainer, we're going to dive into the data to debunk the common myths that create this tension and show you how to actually win.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? It's pretty much the whole job description. How do you possibly accelerate growth, push for real innovation, and keep costs under control all at the same time? Let's take a look at the numbers behind this pressure.
You know, that feeling of being squeezed isn't just in your head, it is absolutely in the data. A 2024 Gartner report shows that almost half, 48%, of all tech leaders are laser-focused on bringing in AI and cranking up developer productivity. The message from the top couldn't be clearer: innovate and make our teams way more efficient.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the reality check. At the very same time, a huge majority, a full 60% of those exact same leaders say that major budget restrictions are their #1 roadblock. And there it is. That's the conflict. Go faster, build the future, but do it with less money.
So how do we get out of this jam? Well, we're going to tackle it by smashing some of the biggest myths that blow up budgets and grind projects to a halt. We'll start with myths about teams and talent, then jump into cost and quality, and finally tech and strategy, before we wrap it all up and show you how to turn these myths into actual profitable realities.
All right, let's start with the most important part of any tech organization: the people. You know, some of the most expensive and deeply held beliefs are all about how we build our engineering teams.
Oh man, we've all been here. The project's late, everyone's feeling the heat, and the gut reaction, the one that feels so obvious, is just to throw more people at the problem. It seems like simple math, right? More engineers means more code gets written.
But here's the thing. All the way back in 1975, a guy named Fred Brooks figured out why that logic is totally flawed. His famous rule, Brooks's Law, says that adding people to a late software project actually makes it even later. And this isn't just some clever saying, it's a fundamental truth about how complex work gets done.
So why does that happen? It all comes down to communication overhead. And here's the key. It doesn't grow in a straight line. It explodes exponentially. Look at this. When you go from just 10 people to 20, the complexity doesn't just double. It goes up by more than 4 times, from 45 communication channels to 190. That complexity is the silent killer of project timelines.
Okay, let's move on to the next big talent myth. This idea that the only real developer is one with a computer science degree. For decades, that piece of paper has been the main filter we use for hiring. But today, the data tells a completely different story.
You know, the old school view loves that formal theoretical background from a university. But the modern reality? The market is screaming for job-ready, practical skills and real, tangible project experience. When you stick to a degree-only hiring policy, you're creating your own talent shortage, which drives your costs through the roof and just slows you down.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The market has already spoken. A 2024 survey from Arc.dev found something pretty wild. In their first 3 years on the job, coding bootcamp grads now earn a median of 37% more than developers with a bachelor's degree. That just shows you the massive premium the market is putting on skills you can use on day one.
All right, so we've seen how myths about our teams can secretly drain the budget. Now let's get into 2 even bigger financial traps: the myths we tell ourselves about the real cost of software and the actual value of quality.
This one's a classic. You fight so hard to get that initial development budget signed off, and when you do, it feels like this huge weight is lifted. The big spending is done. But in reality, you've just paid the cover charge to get in the door. The real costs are just getting started.
Think of it like this. The total cost of ownership iceberg, that initial budget you fought for, that's just the 25% you can see above the water. A staggering 75% of a software's true lifetime cost, all the bug fixes, the maintenance, the security patches, the upgrades, is all hiding right below the surface.
And that leads us right to another incredibly dangerous myth. When the deadline is looming and the pressure is on, quality assurance often looks like this expensive, slow part of the process that we can just trim to save a little time and money. It's treating quality like it's an optional feature, not what it really is: fundamental risk management.
This decision isn't a smart trade-off. It's a financial trap. It's called the rule of 10. A bug that would have cost you $100 to fix back in the design phase will cost 10 times that, $1,000 if a developer has to fix it. If it slips past them into QA, that's now $10,000.
And if that bug actually gets out to your customers, you're looking at $100,000, maybe more. Cutting QA isn't saving money. It's taking out a high-interest loan on your future.
Okay, for our last set of myths, let's zoom out to the really big picture, the strategic choices we're making about the tech we use and the products we decide to build.
We've all seen it. It's called shiny object syndrome. There's this incredible pull to adopt the latest, buzziest new technology because we think that using bleeding-edge tools automatically gives us a competitive edge. But making strategic decisions based on hype, that's a recipe for disaster.
But if you actually look at the data from the 2024 Stack Overflow survey, you see what the pros are really using. The real work of the world runs on mature, stable, sometimes even boring tools. The lesson here isn't that new tech is bad. It's that a real strategic advantage comes from stability, a huge talent pool you can hire from, and a massive support ecosystem. 3 things that brand new tech almost never has.
And this brings us to our final and maybe most critical strategic myth, the massive misunderstanding of what a minimum viable product, or MVP, actually is. So many people think the M in MVP stands for minimal cost. It doesn't.
The whole point of an MVP was never to build a cheap version of your final product. The true goal is to get the maximum amount of validated learning about your idea with the least amount of effort. Success isn't measured by how many features you shipped. It's measured by the quality of the user data you got back. The focus isn't on being minimum, it's on being viable, as in, is this business idea even viable at all?
So, we've just busted 6 powerful myths about how we build teams, how we manage costs, and how we set strategy. Let's pull this all together and look at the real hard dollar damage these myths can do to your company's bottom line.
I mean, when you lay it all out like this, the financial hit is just undeniable. Adding more people just adds exponential overhead. Ignoring the total cost of ownership can lead to 3 or 4 times your initial budget in costs you never saw coming. And cutting QA can literally multiply your bug-fixing costs by 100. Every single one of these myths is a direct, predictable, and totally avoidable drain on your budget.
At the end of the day, it's proactive, data-driven leadership that turns a software team from a cost center into a true engine for growth. The data doesn't lie, and the financial impact is very, very real. So the only question left to ask is this: which one of these costly myths is hiding in your budget right now?